You're listening to Unhooked. On today's episode, why inspiration is for amateurs and the myth of the ideal man. So, stay tuned.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Lipkowitz, and with over 12 years of meditation experience as a mindfulness trainer and coach for high performers, I've become obsessed with helping people break free from compulsive, unhealthy behaviors and addictions and step into a life of true freedom so that they can finally become their best selves and cultivate deeper and lasting fulfillment. I've created Unhooked, the Breaking Porn Addiction podcast, to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to master your mind and optimize your life. This is Unhooked. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Unhooked, the Breaking Porn Addiction podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lipkowitz, and I'm calling today from Amsterdam, but it is my last night in Amsterdam. Tomorrow, I fly off to New York City for a few weeks to visit some friends and explore and eat some delicious food. So I'm excited about that. After New York, I'll be headed back to Bali for a few months, also to eat lots of good food and visit friends and do some work. So that's just a little life update for you. But I want to start off today talking about the inspiration is for amateurs topic. And to do this, I want to tell you a little story, which is about my life yesterday and how I did not want to go to the gym at all. So I woke up, feeling kind of groggy. I didn't get much sleep the night before. I had some work early in the morning that I had to drag myself to, and my body just didn't feel energized. I didn't feel powerful. There was no strength. I thought, what's the point of going to the gym? I'm not going to be able to get a good workout. So I almost didn't go. I almost just went home and skipped the gym. But I decided that I would just go, even if I didn't feel like it, even if I wasn't motivated or energized, I would just go and lift a few weights and move around and maybe stretch a little and use the sauna. Because I knew that, even if I just did a little bit of weights and a little bit of moving around, even if I just stretched and used the sauna, it would be better than nothing. So I forced myself to go even though I didn't feel like it. And I am so glad I did. Because once I got to the gym, once I started moving my body, loosen things up, put on some good music, that's when it kicked in and I started actually having a really good session. I started lifting heavier, I started pushing myself, the music got good and I started feeling it. And it really changed things for me. And so that's the topic today, is the topic of how we can't rely on inspiration or motivation. And I mentioned this at the top of the episode, the myth of the ideal man. And this is this idea that you should always feel like you're motivated and disciplined, and this myth that you think you should always love your habits and routines, that you should be pumped every time you go to the gym, or that you should be super excited to sit down and meditate or journal. And this is the myth of the ideal man. Because here's the reality. Some days you feel like shit. Some days your partner is annoying, your boss is demanding, you didn't sleep well, something failed at work. It feels like your life is a shitstorm. It can feel like you don't want to go to the gym, you don't want to meditate, you don't want to eat healthy. All you want to do is play video games and binge Netflix and eat 7 bags of cookies. So part of this work that we're doing in recovering from porn addiction or breaking bad habits or whatever it is that brings you to this podcast is putting aside this myth of the ideal man and recognizing that it's okay that you don't always feel inspired, that this is normal. And so this is where we get the title of the episode. This is a quote from Chuck Close, who's a prolific painter and artist. And he said, inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. And so I love this idea that, inspiration, it's for amateurs. The rest of us, those of us who are professionals, we just show up and we just get to work. And so this is the professional mentality. committing to yourself to just show up and do the work regardless of how you feel. Now, the paradox here is that motivation and inspiration are helpful. And so you should inspire yourself if you can. You should motivate yourself if you can. To read books from people who overcame adversity, read books about people who struggled through addiction and found freedom. Get motivated from people like Kobe Bryant and David Goggins, but to not rely on these motivations, to not rely on, waiting until you feel inspired to go to the gym, and instead to just do the work. So little tips on how to stay disciplined. The first is recognizing that doing what you don't want to do, doing what is difficult, is rewarding all on its own. It grows your ability to be with what's uncomfortable. And this is also why we practice meditation, why you sit still and focus on your breathing, is when you're uncomfortable, when you're restless, when you're anxious, and you sit there with it. That is a skill that's directly going to help you break free from addiction. Another tip, recognizing that valuable things will be difficult. So focusing on doing things that are challenging is rewarding, because otherwise you're just letting the wind take you where it wants. But instead, to go against the stream and pilot your own ship, take life by the horns and chart your destination. If you do these things, you're becoming a person of value and strength when you do hard work. Now, an important thing to understand here is knowing the difference between hard work and hard to do work. This is a concept that comes from Newport, one of my favorite authors, and he talks about the difference between hard work and hard to do work. Hard work is difficult in the moment, but overall it's invigorating and beneficial. Hard to do work, in contrast to that, is difficult to sustain over time, and eventually you burn out. So an example of this is of the hard to do work where you burn out would be going to the gym from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. every night of the week. That is hard to do, and you will eventually burn out. Another example of hard to do work, meditating for 3 hours a day when you've never meditated before in your life. In contrast to these, if we look at hard work, some examples could be making sure you get your heart rate up and push yourself at least 5 times a week. This is something, again, you can do it in just a few minutes, a few push-ups, a few squats, a few pull-ups. That is going to be easier to accomplish. It's still hard work, but it's not going to lead to burnout. Another example around meditation this time would be making the commitment to meditate for at least 3 minutes every morning, no matter how you feel or how busy you are. You will always be able to take 3 minutes. There's no excuse where you can't take 3 minutes. So that's another example of hard work. It's difficult in the moment, but overall invigorating and beneficial. So the summary of this whole podcast episode is remembering that inspiration is for amateurs. You can't rely on motivation or inspiration. It's helpful, yes, but don't rely on it. Instead, do the hard work, stay disciplined, and make sure it's sustainable. So understand that difference between hard work and hard to do work. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this short little episode coming at you from Amsterdam. The next time you hear from me, I will be in New York City. So much love to all of you. Stay disciplined out there, stay strong, and we'll see you on the next episode.